So the first ois established like this. The famous pasuk Chassidus brings from Mishlei, where the Torah itself is speaking. The Torah says, "Ve'eh Etzlo Amon, ve'eh shashuyim yoim yoim," which means it's saying in the past tense, but it's the present tense. I am for him. Amon means a nursling that's nursed, a child that's nursed. Shashuyim, different translations, an object of delight. Mesachekas lefonov b'chol eis. Mesachik means to play, an object of, again, a plaything before him at all times. That's pasuk lamed. Then pasuk lamed aleph of Periches concludes with v'shashuyes b'nei adam, and the delight of man. So, analyzing the psukim, basically he says there's two levels to Torah. There's a level of Etzlo, Torah as it's bound up with him, and Torah, of course, as is given to us. Torah bound up with him as these dargas, Amun, Shashuyim, Mesachekes. She doesn't go into the Maimon, into these three dargas. To be other dargas he goes into. And then there's the object of Tainuk in general, the point being an object of delight, as it is for Bnei Adam. It's a given that the object of delight for us is the intellectual delight, our understanding of it. But the pnimius of it, as the Ois concludes, is the Anoichi. And explained, he brought a word from the Baal Shem Tov. Rabbi Gaon says, in his famous Hashodas, it's like a poem. Many Gaonim wrote these kinds of poems, listing all 613 mitzvahs. So there's a famous, they're called Hashodas, because the mitzvahs are, I guess, have warnings, where he explains how all 613 are rooted in the Aseret HaDibros. It's not worthy that 6 and 1 and 3 is 10. There's 620 letters in Aseret HaDibros, Marambas on the 613 mitzvahs, and design mitzvahs derabanan, Lasem mitzvahs bnei Noach. At any rate, so that's the word of the Rabbi Gaon, the Rasag. Baal Shem Tov said that it's all nichl on the word Anoichi. The whole Torah is in the word Anoichi. The Rebbe says, how could there be Torah seichel? Anoichi is Anoichi Lo Yisram, is Leibishim Os, Leibishim Kotz. Anoichi goes on, the Eibishter higher than every possible description. No letter can convey him. This is from the Zohar. Not even the stroke of a letter. But the point is that this Anoichi, the Eibishter gave in Torah. And that's the Taich also of the Baal Shem Tov. The Gemara says in the word Anoichi, famous Gemara in Shabbos, the whole sugi of Matan Torah. So it says the word, I'm assuming, you have to look at the Mefarshim. It could be that, I'm assuming the question of the Gemara is why the word Anoichi altogether, it's not Lashon HaKodesh. Ani is Lashon HaKodesh. So the Gemara answers that Anoichi is Rosh Tevis Ona Nafshi Ksavis Yehavis. I myself, Ona Nafshi Ksavis wrote it, Yehavis gave it. So what's the Chiddush of that? Of course he wrote it and gave it. It's a nice remez, but what's the Chiddush? Baal Shem Tov teaches the Gemara deeper. It's not that the Pshat is, Anoichi is saying, I'm the author and I gave it to you. But rather, Ano Nafshi, my essence, Ksavis wrote it in, Yehavis gave it to you. That's the Baal Shem Tov's taich on the Gemara. So that's what he's saying here, that the Etzlo Darge, the Tainuk Atzmi, is the Eibishter gave in Torah. In every word of Torah, every story of every level of Torah that we learn, Shashoy b'nei Adam, and our delight is in each one according to his level of understanding. Pshat, Dremes, Drush, and Sod, as a child learns, as a big Gaon learns, and each one is equally the Anoichi. That's basically the Nekudah till now. So now we're up to the last part of this ois, V'alpi ha'yadua. Yeah, everybody has it? It's like the last third or so. This is where the bulk of the Maimon is going, from here. So it's known that the Achonat to Matan Torah, Yitzias Mitzrayim, Tzviras. There's two things, Yitzias Mitzrayim and Tzviras Omer. Therefore, this which we identify, this Shashuyim Atzmi, that is in Torah, since the Achonat to it is Yitzias Mitzrayim and Tzviras Omer. So therefore, the Achonat is always me'en, similar to that which it prepares for or creates. Therefore, Yeshna Gam Yitzias Mitzrayim, Tzviras Omer, this in of what? The Etzlo, this Inyan Atzmi. So where do we see that? So goes on to explain. This is the reason why Shekol Gimel Inyanim Elo Nikroim B'Shem Shabbos. It's a strange thing, but there's an association of Shabbos with all three, namely Yetzias Mitzrayim, Sfiras Ha'omer, and Matan Torah, which he now demonstrates. Which number one was Pesach. We are told we're told to start the count the day after Shabbos. That's what the pasuk says. Of course, it doesn't mean Shabbos. As you all know, the great debates took place between the Chachamim and the Tzedukim, who argued that it means Shabbos, and he starts the same on Sunday. Gemara in Menachos devotes a whole arichas to the various arguments proving it can't be. Shabbos does not mean Pesach. It doesn't mean Shabbos. It means the first day Yom Tov. So Chassidus says, so just say so. So up here now we'll have the beer towards the end. Torah Davka doesn't say Marchas HaPesach, it means Marchas HaShabbos. We have to deduce that it means Pesach. I mean, the word Shabbos simply means a day of cessation of work, which is true of Yom Tov as well, not to the degree Taka of Shabbos, but to that degree. So it does apply. But the question is confusing. Shabbos usually means Shabbos. Why call Pesach Shabbos? We'll see why, because that's the inyan of the Voehya, Etzlo, which is the achana component, the critical achana component of Matan Torah, to be seen. So that is, as far as Yetzias Mitzrayim is concerned, the association with Shabbos. Did we learn this yesterday? No. So when we're told to count Sfiras Ha'omer, again, strangely, we're not told count 7 weeks, we're told count 7 Shabbos. Shleinemar Shiva Shavuos. In Pashas Emor, of Shiva Shavuos Tispelach in Pashas Re'eh. But when we're first commanded, the Torah says count 7 Shabbos. Kiyim Shabbos is dafke again because the fish is Sfiras Ha'omer Gamkim B'china Shabbos, as we will see, because it's an integral hachana to Matan Torah. Therefore, in Sfiras Ha'omer too, there's the inyan, the darge, which is, as he says, the hoya Etzlo Shashuyim. The Etzlo is the diuk, the fund of. That exists also in Sfiras Ha'omer, where in the inyan of Shabbos. And likewise, Shavuos, how are we told to observe Shavuos? V'chein ksiv, you should count ad mimacharas haShabbos hashviyis till the end of the 7th Shabbos. Tisper chamishim yom, you should count 50 days. Shleinemar here too ad mimacharas hashviyis, count till after the 7th week. Kiyim mimacharas haShabbos hashviyis, the day after Shabbos, the 7th Shabbos. And what's that day? Shekoi al Chag HaShavuos Matan Torah. So here too, Shenikra B'Shem Shabbos, a little bit different because we're saying it's the day after, but it's associated. It's called Mimachas HaShabbos. So in Bechlolos, it's called Shavuos is also called B'Shem Shabbos. Clear? Pesach itself is called Shabbos. The count starts the day after Pesach, but here in Machas HaShabbos, it's the next day, but still the Torah is linking it with what? Machas HaShabbos. And furthermore, which is could be why he brings this next Nakuda, aside from the fact that it's a fact, but kind of answers our question. It's the day after. But Hakal Moedim, the Shabbos didn't the Torah. It's machlekes whether Shavuos is given on the 6th or 7th of Sivan, between Rabbi and Chachamim. But they arrived at Hasinai on Sunday or Monday. But Akaponim all agree that Torah was given on Shabbos. Behind it, all 3 inyanim of what? Of Sfiras Ha'omer, of Pesach and Sfiras Ha'omer and Matan Torah, Yeshnam Shachas B'chinas Etzlo Shashuyim. All of them are in the process of drawing down this level of this atzmitical level of Torah, and therefore therefore all are called Shabbos. As we'll presently explain. We're clear? This is the outline. Yeah? Is base. I mentioned yesterday, you can see it yourself, at the beginning of the Maimer, they bring a star. In the star, they write that they have a fixed Kamin Yonim. So there's a very big investment here. It's almost Muga. They don't even call it Hanacha built in Moishe. It's called it Hanacha, which is a very telling sign that there was they don't tell us, I don't know why they don't, where they wrote things, changed things. Be nice to see. Sometimes they do actually the beginning of the Sefer. I wonder if that's the Maimer they chose here. No, all right, just a quick look. Yeah. Oh, it is this Maimer. It is this Maimer, but it's not here.
With the manuscript?
Yeah, at the beginning of this Sefer, wow, this tremendous ha'aras, notes. So they asked questions, the Rebbe answered the questions and incorporated it in the Maimon. Okay, I'm not going to promise, but it'll be nice to share that with you. What they asked and what the Rebbe answered. It's a really inside, intimate view, more than a view, taken into the Maimon. Okay, let's continue. Blin Eder. The matter is as follows. What's the union of what? Of Shabbos. The Gile of Matan Torah. The Gile of Matan Torah is really a level of likus that by definition is beyond revelation. Again, revelation means fundamentally outside, acknowledgement of an outsider to where the Gile is being revealed. This is saying is a Gilui that expresses the exclusivity of the Eibishter with Etzlo, nothing else but him. Kiyim, this you have it there. Page Kuf Tzadik Vav. Kiyim b'chinas etzema shulamayim megeder Gilui legamri. It's the etzema helem be'etzem, fundamentally concealed. Va'adlo atzmos and atzmos. Now, what does it mean? Etzema etzema. It means revelation. So it means it's a revelation that conveys there's nothing other. At any rate, then he takes us all the way to Atzmos, Aleichem B'Shanech. Bottom line, Matan Torah is a Gilui Atzmos, which quoting from the Zohar earlier, D'leis Ram is Leibishum Mos Leibishum Kos, Kots, says the Zohar on the word Anoichi, that I cannot be conveyed, no letter can convey. A letter is a Keli, is a Gilui. Not even a koitz, a stroke, the keser, the most nuanced expression cannot convey me. This doesn't contradict which we stated earlier. That Matan Torah comes after the preparation of the and why is it kind of why would I think it'd be a contradiction? They too, that's also Gilui of Atzmos, Etzema, Cheretza Achana, and all of the Gedorim of Yetzias Mitzrayim, Eskafi, and the whole Avida, and this Hapcha of Sfirasoima. Not a stira. Number one, when we speak about Hayd and Ishtal Shalos, even at the level of the Etzem, which is beyond projection, beyond revelation, Yesh say the Hadraga is also Dargis. So therefore we're saying already, there's Siyas Mitzrayim, there's Sfirasoima, there's Matan Torah, there's Dargis in this Etzem. As we see that there can be levels even in transcendence. Where's that? In the end of Nisim. Makim is where? Ayches. Even though Nisim are beyond the created order, right? Beyond the system. There's a whole Seder of Nisim. I'm not sure what he's referring to. I need to look it up. But there's different kinds of Nisim. There is, you say, I'll look over there in the Tafish Ayin Ches. But we have learned, I don't know if it means this, the Chanukah Maimorim, the Purim Maimorim, explain the different dargas of Nisim, in general, complete right in Teva, quasi Teva, in Teva. That's because the Shoresh is different. So even in he wants to say that even in transcendence, when you speak beyond, it's not a blanket beyond. In beyond is dargas. Now, the reason for that is, of course, in Atzmos Mamish there isn't. But the reason why in the highest Gilui there's already dargas, because the Kavan is Diribet Achtoinim. So the Eibishter sets in motion already at the highest, deepest, most essential levels, the Inyan, and on a very subtle level, dargas, because the whole point is levels and levels to the lowest level. So it's factored into the whole process from the highest, from the very beginning of the expression of Elikus. Of course, the higher you go, however, the overt experiences, ispashtos and pshitos, simplicity, transcendence, infinite. But subtly, there's already dargas, etzlo, because already that darga, Hashem is saying, this is not the kavanah. If it's meet the strat, infinite revelation. My kavanah is I want to do it b'tachtonim. So it's already there at the highest levels in a very subtle way, in a way that it will emerge ultimately all the way down the whole process. Let's continue. In addition to the fact that what that higher than ishtalshul is, there is what there's dargis. In order that this essential tainuk, he hasn't used the word tainuk, but that's the term that's used, which is what Torah is. In order for that to be drawn down, he's kind of saying what he said. That Hashem wants us to delight in his Torah. So there has to be so already at the very beginning, there has to be Seder, what I just said basically, Seder Vadraga, should have read ahead, because the kavanah is to bring it down where Lamat. Clear? We're good? Yeah, let's continue. And this is what the pasuk says. Excuse me. I was so excited to come here this morning, but I didn't sleep. I need a lot of coffee. Huh? Yeah. Not to say that I wasn't happy where I was, but anyway. The voice of my beloved is coming, medalig alahorim, skipping over the mountains, and mekapetz elak voice, and jumping on the hills, over the hills. Referring to Matan Torah. So he's Masbir Kel Doidi, the voice of my beloved, Kroy al Pchinas Kola de la Ishtama. This refers to the Zera calls Tia Shofer. And it could be also the previous mind with the music that the Nevi'im couldn't write down of the Neshama. Says this is the Indian. This Kola, this voice de la Ishtama that's not heard. So now he's going to elaborate. It says by Yaakov, right? Yitzchak said, "Hakel Yaakov." The voice is the voice of Yaakov, the hands are the hands of Esav. So if you look at the pasuk there, we see Kel Chaser Vav, Kel Moli Vav. The first Kel voice lacks the Vav, and the second is written with the Vav, Mole. Meaning, Shebeis Pchenes Elim Kola Dishtam Kola De Lo Yishtam. These are the two voices: a voice that is heard and a voice that is not heard. Kola Dishtama, what's a voice that's heard? First, as is Benefesh Adam. This is a voice that comes as a result of an idea, or a feeling that's expressed in a sound, in a voice. It'll be words in Seichel, it'll be words in Midas also, or a cry. Or a seichel that comes as a result of midas. You have an emotion, then intellect kicks in to carry out the emotional objective. So there's the seichel that precedes midas, pure objectivity, and then it can also be a seichel that's harnessed for the midas. At any rate, that's a kerl that is heard. Kerl is who call it the pasuk, and this is a voice that has an end. Since this is a voice, a sound, its whole Indian is to reveal an idea or midas. They are limited. But the emotion is no longer firing. The idea is no longer being expressed. When it's over, where that which is the cause of this gili of the voice ends. So therefore, nifsak b'meila gam makam. You can see the hemshech to the preview to the Maimon of Shavuos morning, right? The shira, the shemesh begiving doim. So nifsak b'meila gam makam. So automatically this voice ends. That's the voice that is heard. The voice that is not heard. This is a curl that is higher than seichel. This is a continuous cry. Now, avoided is psychos halev shalamayli mitam v'das. The heart is crying, and not because of a cheshbon hide in tam v'das. It's inherent, intrinsic longing for the Eibishter. So that's how it's benefesh adam in avodah. That's the kol adolei shtam, which the Tkiya Shofar gives quote unquote voice to. L'mayla, it's the kol poshut. So that's lamata. L'mayla, what is it? The kol adolei shtam. When you namshachas pchinas etzem ha'oib, this is revelation of Elikus that is essential. Shemitzad atzmei l'mayla megeder giloi, not heard because it's higher than giloi. Not heard, but ever present. And this is a voice that Eibush is crying out, as it were, that never ends. And this is the meaning that it says in Parshas V'schana. It was a great voice that had no end. Because Matan Torah is the Eibishter revealing his essential self beyond Giloi. That's the voice, Kol Adolei Posik, and a voice that does not end. And furthermore, since the voice is a voice that has no end, in Shayich by Hefsek V'Shinoi, it's not Shayich, Hefsek should stop, or Shinoi would change. Therefore, everything which this voice expresses, the Eibishter gives the Torah in this. This is the Anoichi in the Torah. In Shayich, but Shinoi, Chas V'Shalom, there's no change. Torah, one of the Gimel Ikrim, is never exchanged, ever. So now, going back to the pasuk of Kel Doidi, that how's it described? It's Medaleg Alahorim, skipping over the mountains and jumping over the hills. So what's the Indian here? So nonetheless, even though we said it's the Ma'alim Megeder Giloi, but as we said before, even in that which is hiding in Ishtalshalos, they say that Adraga, there is a system, because as he said, all Kavan is to give it to us, who are the bottom rung of the system. So where do we see even in this Kol Adolei Shtama, the Inyan of Dargis? It's in this Inyan here, and that is Mikomokim Ksiv Medalig Mekapit. It's two Inyanim. This voice is skipping and jumping. What's the difference? Shadilu Kvitza Baraglaim. Number one, when we say skipping and jumping, it's with the feet. What does feet mean? Feet means to come down. That's where you engage the world. Every amshocha needs feet to bring it down to the level below. It's the whole level, the lower level of the mashpia. So when he's mashpia, that's the regel. Haino, meaning to say, this general rule, that every amshocha has to have this regel component, this descent. Of course, it's true. Etc. Meaning the higher level becomes only a makif, a transcendent level, to the lower, not able to absorb it internally, but there's a process. What's internalized above becomes transcendent relative to below. Another model for that is the upper level becomes the moichin, the higher level of the lower level. So it's not only true in Seder Shtalshalus that there's this process of a tzimtzum, a descent that's required to go from upper to lower. And it's also true on a very subtle level above that there is higher and lower. For example, when atik is nimshech, shirak me'ois tov. It's the last letter of the aleph base tov that atik is nimshech and arich. And not going to Pratim, just bringing out this principle that there is a process, this tzimtzum in the most subtle sense of not siluk, etc., but still a tzimtzum, where the lower, this upper has to descend to the lower. Of all the letters of the aleph base, on the last letter that's mamshech conveys atik to arich, the levels below it.
The gimel tachtonim.
He's about the tov. He's asking.
Al derech, the gimel tachtonim.
He's asking? What's the tov? I think the last letter of the aleph base. I'm showing the last the amshocha is only to the last letter of the aleph base. I need more. I don't know. What's the rak? You think adarab? If it's the lower, the further it is. The choret means this. That in atik is all the oishis of the aleph base. What is nimshech from atik is only the ois tov shabbat. The lowest level of atik is nimshech. It requires more. It requires more explanation. I don't know. Anyway, and even in the shirat b'pchinas malchus b'malchus, that what is drawn from the kedem atzimtzum is the level of malchus b'malchus, of the sfiris lifnei atzimtzum. We'll get the general idea. The general idea is that even in the levels higher than ishtalshel, progressively higher, there is the inyan of regel, of amshocha, a process of levels. His feet will stand on har zeisim. So here too, there's the inyan also of, even though it's a transcendent gilui and v'nigla kved Hashem, etc. Nonetheless, there's the inyan of raglayim, there's higher and lower, and there's amshocha, there's a seder. Again, why? Because the kavanas did it b'tachtonim. So there's always going to be seder. It is the tayu b'kelim the tikra. Right? Now, this was a general introduction to explain the medalig and the makapets, about the koil, the voice, the kola, the lo yishtam. So in this amshocha of regel, right, jumping with the feet. So regel b'chlal means amshocha lemata. But in this amshocha itself, yeshna base, b'chinas are two levels, medalig and makapets. What's the difference? This is the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, in Masechta Olay, so the whole Masechta deals with what's considered an Oyhel in the laws of Tumah, which means things underneath it. If there's a mess, there's other things underneath this covering, of course, they'll become Tumah. So the Mishnah there says, refers to things that are jumping or skipping. Creatures that hop and jump and punkt while it's jumping over, there is a mess underneath and an object. Is that considered an oil or not? For a moment, they're under a canopy. So the ruling is no. But the Mishnah goes into Pratim, what kind of creatures. So one is medalig, one is mekapetz. So the Mefarshim, what the Mishnah explain, that medalig means a kind of creature, medalig baragle achas. That means with 1 foot. It's 1 foot off the ground at a time, skipping. Mekapetz a beza raglai. But jumping means with both feet. So we see that in the Mishnah. Now, that's what's being employed here in our pasuk. So what's the hefesh b'nei because begashmis kashim medalik baragli achas, when you skip with 1 foot in levad zeishad guf nish b'mkoimai, the whole body is not lifted. Kol amshach rak b'chinas ragel levad, it's only the foot that's moving. Moreover, nigam b'chinas regel atzmoi, even in the inyan of regel hariragli achas alor, it's one's on the ground. What's moving in the skipping, just take that as a Kodak moment. What's moving is only 1 foot. The body isn't, only 1 foot is moving. exactly Begashim said, I know what, but you get the general idea. The skipping, right? You're not jumping 2 feet off the ground. Let's finish the ois mashenkin kishmakapitz the beis raglayim. But when a person jumps with 2 feet, even though the amshach is through the feet, sorry, when you jump through the feet, neta kol gufi, the whole body is lifted. So what is moving here, what's being nimshach is the whole etzem of the person. Okay, we're going to see that in a moment, in the future.